Hello, good day everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is Jobran. So thank you so much for watching all my videos, for supporting me, for subscribing to my channel. So I have good news for you. So I've received my Google AdSense account. Okay, my Google AdSense. So thank you so much for supporting. So this is the output of my hard work. And thank you so much for all your support, for loving my channel. So this is it. This is our Google AdSense. So thank you so much. So keep on watching and subscribing to my channel to get to know more and to learn something out of this very quick discussion. Okay, so for today is I'll be explaining to you our lesson number 4 in the subject of Philippine popular culture. So before I'll go deeper, so we will try or to embrace the idea of culture. So since we are done discussing what is culture, so how do we construct our culture? So for today is I'll be explaining to you how do we get our culture. So where did we acquire our culture? Okay? Sa Bisaya pa, asa man ta nakakuha aning kultura nato. So I have my own culture, you also have your own culture. So we will talk about the culture learning process. Okay, so as what we've noticed now, we defined our own culture based on our physical and social attributes. So we normally describe ourselves based on what we see with other people, based on our physical and social attributes. So I can say that I am a Filipina because I have I have my own Philippine culture. So the same with other culture. Okay, so and the way we identify our own culture sometimes reflect on how do we see ourselves. Okay, so based on research, there are 12 sources of cultural identity. Okay, so we have the race, the ethnicity, and the nationality as a Filipina, our ability or disability, the way we speak, our language, our social status, our religion, sexuality, geographic region, the age, our health, the sex or the gender, and our social class. So there are a lot of things to consider when you talk about understanding how or where did we acquire our own culture, so where it started. So from these 12 sources of cultural identity or knowledge, we will able to realize that there are a lot of things that really affect on how we understand ourselves better, and how do we define our own culture, or how did we learn about our own culture. Okay, so how culture is learned. So take note that as part of being humans, we are considered the socializing agents. We are the socializing agents. So what does it mean? So when you talk about the socializing agents is we love to do socialize. We love to do interact with other people. We love other people. Okay, so it is very important to understand that we acquire a lot of knowledge, attitudes, skills, and values that form our cultural identity. We learn from other people. We acquire their own knowledge and trying to adapt that knowledge to ourselves. We acquire new learnings, we acquire new skills and values from other people. Because then again, we are the socializing agents. Especially for Filipinos like us, we love hanging out with other people. We love to do socialize because we are a socializing being. Okay, so there are various socializing agents that transmit culture. Okay, so where did we get our culture? Okay, from our family. Our family is an integral part of our society. Our family they are our first teacher. So they taught us a lot of things. And once we get to learn something from them, is we also apply that ourselves. That's how we transmit one culture to another culture. The school, right? Since we are surrounded by a lot of people when we go to school, so their culture might also be transferred to us. The way they talk, the way they dress up. So possibly we're also influenced by it. the church, the community, our neighbors, our classmates, our friends, electronic media, social media, sports, our technologies. So we are affected by everything. So we are affected by a lot of things. We are influenced by a lot of things, by the things that we see from our external forces. So that's how we acquire those learnings. Okay, so when it is learned, so we've talked about how culture is learned, we've talked about how do we transmit culture. Now the question is this: when it is learned, sa Bisaya pa, kanus-amon ni nato nakatunan. Okay? So the knowledge, the attitudes, the values, and the skills when it all started. Okay, so since from the beginning we are a socializing agent, we love to interact, we love to make friends, we love to hang out with other people, and we also love to blend with another people. So for us Filipinos, we are so attached. We are spending or investing our time hanging out with other people. And sometimes the knowledge, the attitude, the values, and the skills is also being transferred to us. Okay, so from the point of view of the outside observer, so if you're going to ask me, I am just an outside observer. Socialization is the imposition of social patterns of behavior. So assuming I am an outside observer, I could say that socialization is the imposition of social patterns of behavior, meaning what we see from our environment, possibly it is imposed by us. The knowledge, the skills, the values, and the skills that is being transferred to us is possibly imposed because of the socializing, because of the social patterns of behavior, because everybody is doing it. So possibly I can also do it. So possibly I can also do something like that because a lot of people are doing it. Okay, so that's how we learn about culture. So when it is learned, you can learn it everywhere. You can learn it from the things that you see outside, from the things that you see from the external forces, from the social patterns of behavior that you see from the people around you. Okay, so the process of socialization can occur at 3 stages of life. Number 1, we have our primary socialization. So when you talk about primary socialization, which involves that when we were still young, or we are young children, our family taught us a lot of things. So possibly our early caregivers, if we have yaya, so possibly the culture of our yaya possibly transmitted to us. The culture of our immediate family, our siblings, our parents also transmitted to us. So that is a perfect example of primary socialization. The second is secondary socialization. So what is secondary? Secondary, it means that we acquire those learnings, those knowledge, those cultural identity from our neighborhood, from our neighbors, from our religious affiliation, and other influences that surround and come into the home. Meaning we acquire those learnings, those knowledge from the people around us. That is our secondary socialization, from our friends, from our family, from our church community. So and other things that may influence us on how we acquire those culture. It's good no if you are surrounded by a good people, because possibly the culture that they have could possibly transmitted to you, and it makes you a better person. So that's why because we are a socializing agent, so we need to be careful dealing with other people, because possibly also be affected by a negative mindset. So it's normal that we love to do socialize, we love friends, we love hanging out with them, but let's all be careful with how we do or acquire those culture that could be possibly transmitted to us. That is our secondary socialization. The third is the adult socialization. So this involves the socialization of adults into our roles, settings, and situations for which they may have been unprepared by primary and secondary socialization. So what it means by adult socialization, so meaning when you already have work, when you are now working, when you have a lot of responsibilities, since you are all grown up, so you become more independent. So possibly that is our adult socialization. We were able to decide on our own. And sometimes because of our work, sometimes we are so bombarded with a lot of things. And sometimes we are so pressured because of the idea of adult socialization, since you are doing everything for since you are doing everything for your own. So you are now a strong, independent woman. Say that being an adult is not easy because it takes a lot of risks, it takes a lot of responsibilities, and it takes a lot of things to do. So that is our adult socialization. So these stages of the socialization process are not entirely discrete. They are not secret, but rather they interact with one another in our lives. So without thinking, no, that those things, those types of stages of life, when you talk about socialization, they interact with one another in our lives. So they brought a lot of things in ourselves, the way we understand our culture, our identity, our knowledge, our skills, and our values. So what we learn as children can be modified or can be reinforced. So when you talk about culture, so what we've learned when we're still young can be reinforced or modified. When you talk about reinforced, when we are taught by good things, we can reinforce that. But when we experience bad things, we can change that. Either it is good reinforcement or the not good reinforcement. But what we learn as we grow up and have more experiences. Again, what we learn as children can be reinforced or modified. We can change it. What we learn when we're still young, we can change it. We can reinforce. We can improve it more by what we learn as we grow up and have more experiences. So take note, the more we get a lot of experiences in life, the more we become more independent, the more we are very good in what we do because we learn a lot of things. So when you talk about primary socialization, we talk about our cultural similarity. So since we are surrounded by our immediate family, so more or less our cultures is the same by our siblings, by our parents. So we are socializing, having cultural similarities. So when you talk about secondary socialization, so this is the most important source of secondary socialization in most people's lives is the school. So secondary socialization, it means that our school is the most important source of secondary socialization. You might ask me why? Because possibly our school, we spent a lot of time going to school, right? From 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So possibly there are a lot of blending of cultures, and that is part of our secondary socialization, and we learn a lot of things in school. It's either good or not good, but we get something out out of nowhere because of various cultures that we are in. The secondary socialization. It is in the school that individuals are often introduced to ideas and values that differ from those they acquired at home. Yes, this is true, because when you get out of your home, when you go to school, you learn a lot of things. You make friends, you are the socializing agents. Sometimes you are also affected by the things that are happening around you in school, and we learn a lot of ideas and values that we did not learn it from, or that we didn't learn it at home. So possibly you can also acquire those culture. Okay, so there are some results of socialization. So number one is the ethnocentrism. So what is ethnocentrism? To explain it more simpler, so when you talk about ethnocentrism is, we always thought as young children, no, we always thought that what is available to us today, those things are very universal. Those things are those are the result of socialization. So since everybody is doing it, we are also doing it. So that is the ethnocentrism's idea. So, and we don't, when you talk about ethnocentrism, is we don't like change. We have a strong resistance to change. And people resist change under the best of circumstances. So ethnocentrism is, since it is the only best thing to do, so we have to do it. So we have to do what is available. So if we are giving a chance to change something, so one major expression of ethnocentrism is a strong resistance to change. When you talk about ethnocentrism, there is a strong resistance to change. People resist change under the best of circumstances. So we don't like change when you talk about ethnocentrism. The point is that ethnocentric belief is we only focus on ourselves. We thought that that our belief is correct, and we don't like to change. There's a strong resistance to change, and we resist change under the best of circumstances. Okay, so that is ethnocentrism's idea, and this is one of the result of socialization. Number 2 is perception. So perception, this is your own belief. This is your own thinking about things. So this refers to the stimulation of the sense organs. So what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste and smell. So that is your perception. So take note, the way you perceive things. So it is possibly the result of socialization. What you see, what you hear, what you taste and smell. So possibly it is a result of socialization. So there are no two people perceive stimulus the same with other people. So we have different perception. We have different on how we see things, how we hear about things, and how we feel about the things that are happening around us. So that is our perception. Our perception is very subjective. So we always rely it to ourselves, the way we feel, the way we hear, the way we feel about things. So that is perception. Third is the categorization. So how do we categorize other people? So take note that your perception is not sufficient in trying to explain about socialization. So we try to do categorization. So this is the point at which people utilize schema. So schema, this is our own universal schema. So I have my own schema. I have my own categorization. So another term for such schema is category. I also learn how to process by which human beings simplify the world by grouping similar stimuli. So you talk about categorization is the way you perceive things, your perception is not sufficient enough to know the result of socialization. We also need to understand categorization, meaning the way you do categorization, the way you simplify things. So the way you do grouping similar stimuli. So possibly those are the results of categorization. So when you see that we need to group ourselves like this, we need to group ourselves like that. So that is the idea of your own universal schema. So that is part of the result of socialization. Number 4 is the stereotype. So what is stereotypes? This is your generalization to everything. This is your generalization that obscures the differences within a group. So you make judgment as a group, regardless if it is true for them or not. You are doing within a group. So you don't see the differences within a group. So you do stereotype. So whether it is true or not true for them, you do stereotype. You do generalization. Okay, so that is possibly the result of socialization. We make one judgment for everyone. Okay, so you don't rely on the facts. You don't rely on the sensory data available around us. You just rely on the generalization process without knowing the differences within the group, and that is stereotypes. So negative stereotypes enable us to keep our ethnocentric ideas intact by preventing us from seeing contradictory evidence before our very eyes. So when you talk about negative stereotypes, is meaning we always believe on how we think. So we make judgment based on how we think. And sometimes that really hinders us to see the real picture, to see the facts. Because you are so dependent about your own belief, your ethnocentric belief, without seeing the things that are real compared to your ethnocentric ideas and cultural environment. So take note that we individuals, we are not simply passive recipients of incoming messages. I am not a passive recipient of incoming messages. So once a message is received, we interpret it and act something because of that message. So when you talk about variations in cultural environment, meaning when you talk about our cultural environment, we differ from one another. In short, our culture is a two-way learning process. So our culture learning is a two-way process in which individuals are both forming and being formed by incoming cultural messages. So when you talk about passive, so I am not just accepting different messages. So once I receive that message, you also interpret it and act from that message. Because when you talk about culture, culture is a two-way process. It involves both forming and being formed by incoming cultural messages. It depends on me if I will adapt it or not. So that is culture. That's why there is a variations in cultural environment. So we have a lot of culture. We differ from one another. When you go to another country, they also have their own culture. Okay, so variations in cultural attributes, socializing agents, and cultural learners. So when you talk about culture, the way we see things, the way we socialize about things, and how do we learn about culture depends on the norms, what you think is good for your own culture or not. And it really depends on how we possess most of our characteristics. So that's why we can tell that there is variations in our cultural environment, in our cultural attributes, the way we behave about our culture, the way we socialize ourselves with another people, and the way we learn about culture. Because then again, we are living in a fast-paced environment. We are now living in a multicultural environment. So we adapt a lot of things, we learn a lot of things, and sometimes those things may also be transmitted to us as part of our culture. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you get something out of this very quick discussion. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again for my next video blog. Thank you so much and God bless you.